This is the story of how America declared war on the clothesline and how a simple piece of rope became one of the strangest battlegrounds in modern culture. In most countries around the world, hanging your laundry outside to dry feels as natural as breathing. In Italy, only 4% of households even own a machine dryer. In Germany, fewer than half do. In South Korea, just 30%. But in the United States, 85% of households have a clothes dryer humming away in their homes. And in tens of millions of American neighborhoods, hanging your clothes outside isn't just uncommon, it's actually banned. How did this happen? How did a country that prides itself on individual freedom make it illegal to dry your socks in the sunshine? And before we get into how this happened, subscribe if you like stories about the strange rules, hidden systems, and everyday habits that shaped American life. Because once you notice how something as simple as a clothesline became controversial, you start seeing these invisible systems everywhere, and you probably don't want to miss the next one. You have to go back to 1930 when a man named J. Ross Moore built the first electronic drying device for clothes. Moore patented his invention in 1936, but financial troubles forced him to sell the design to the Hamilton Manufacturing Company just a year later. Between 1938 and 1941, Hamilton sold more than 6,000 units. It was a modest start. Then World War II ended and everything changed. In 1947, the first full year of post-war production, Hamilton, General Electric, and other manufacturers sold roughly 61,000 dryer units combined. America was booming. Soldiers came home. Suburbs sprouted at a breathtaking pace. And corporations saw an opportunity not just to sell appliances, but to sell an entirely new way of life. In March of 1956, General Electric and Westinghouse launched one of the most effective mass marketing campaigns in American history. They called it Live Better Electrically. The internal sales pitch at GE was stunningly ambitious. They said, and I quote, "By Thanksgiving, there should not be a man, woman, or child in America who doesn't know that you can live better electrically with General Electric appliances and television." The leading spokesman for this campaign was a charming actor who hosted the General Electric Television Theater on CBS from 1954 to 1962. His name was Ronald Reagan, and alongside his wife Nancy and their daughter Patty, Reagan didn't just sell products, he sold a lifestyle. The electric home, the modern home, the American home. Then came the Gold Medallion Program. Launched by the National Electrical Manufacturers Association in October 1957, this campaign aimed to sell 20,000 all-electric homes by 1958, 100,000 by 1960, and nearly 1 million by 1970. They hit their target, 1 million all-electric homes. And in this vision of the future, the clothesline had no place. The numbers tell the story of just how fast the shift happened. In 1955, only 6% of American households owned a clothes dryer. By 1963, that number quadrupled to almost 25%. By 1970, 45%. By 1997, 78%. Today, roughly 85%. But the dryer didn't just replace the clothesline through convenience, it replaced it through shame. As machine drying became the norm, line drying became a marker, a signal. The New York Times reported that many homeowners associations consider clotheslines an eyesore, not unlike storing junk cars in driveways, and a marker of poverty that lowers property values. Stephen Lake, a British filmmaker who directed the documentary Drying for Freedom, put it bluntly. He said, "The clothesline suggests this idea that you can't afford a tumble dryer. And do I want to live next door to someone who can't afford a tumble dryer? Because that might mean that they're poor. It's a class issue and a status issue." When he traveled across America making his film, the answers he received were remarkably consistent. People told him clotheslines were ugly. They looked, in their word, ghetto. This cultural attitude was enforced through one of the most powerful institutions in American suburban life, the Homeowners Association. There are more than 250,000 HOAS in the United States, governing upward of 60 million people. Alexander Lee, president of Project Laundry List and a champion of the Right to Dry movement, estimated that more than half of them restrict or ban the clothesline. That means tens of millions of Americans are legally prohibited from hanging their laundry in their own yards. These bans have teeth. In Bend, Oregon, a mother and nurse named Susan Taylor made national headlines. even landing a spot on the Colbert Report when her homeowners association fined her nearly $1,000 for drying her laundry in the sun without approval. Her clothesline was physically cut by what she described as laundry haters. Meanwhile, the environmental cost of America's dryer addiction is staggering. According to the Natural Resources Defense Council, clothes dryers account for roughly 6% of all residential electricity consumption in the United States. They generate approximately 27 million metric tons of carbon dioxide annually. They cost American households collectively around $9 billion a year in energy bills. According to the Energy Star program, the average household could save $280 per year simply by switching to line drying. Over a dryer's lifetime, that adds up to more than $2,100. Air drying can also reduce a household's carbon footprint by 2,400 pounds a year. And then there's a cost most people never think about. According to the U.S. Fire Administration, there are 2,900 clothes dryer fires every year, causing $35 million in property damage. 34% of those fires are caused by something as simple as failing to clean the lint trap. So why don't more Americans push back? Some have. Florida was the first state to pass a right to dry law back in the 1970s. Vermont introduced a right to dry bill in 1999. California signed AB 1448 into law in October 2015, making it illegal for HOAS to prohibit clotheslines. Today, 19 states have some form of right to dry legislation on the books. But here's the catch. In all 19 of those states, illegal bans persist in community rulebooks. HOA covenants, conditions, and restrictions that explicitly ban clotheslines remain on paper even where the law says they can't be enforced. Millions of residents simply don't know they already have the right to dry. It's a right that exists on paper but barely exists in practice. There's also a clever legal argument that has emerged. Clotheslines rely on solar energy, the sun's radiation evaporating the water from wet fabric. In states with solar access laws, many dating back to the 1970s energy crisis, clotheslines arguably qualify as solar devices and should be protected. It's an argument that's legally sound and almost poetically absurd at the same time. And then there's the international perspective. A podcaster named Josh Barrow once tweeted about European countries calling it adorable that they brag about high GDP per capita when, quote, nobody actually owns a machine that makes clothing dry. The tweet was, predictably, overrun by sardonically enraged Europeans who found it baffling that Americans would burn fossil fuels and spend billions of dollars to avoid using a piece of string and two poles. A 2025 study from the University of Michigan, published in Resources, Conservation, and Recycling, found that even a partial shift to line drying, mixing it with occasional dryer use, was the second most economical and eco-friendly laundry option available. Better, in fact, than simply upgrading to a more efficient dryer. Researcher Shelley Miller noted, "We tend to focus on technological improvements, but a lot of the time behavioral changes can have larger impacts. And yet, the global dryer market continues to grow. It reached $14 billion in 2024 and is projected to hit $20 billion by 2033. North America remains the largest market by far. So here we are, a country where you can fly an American flag from your porch in any HOA in New Hampshire, but you might get fined for hanging a bedsheet. A country that spent billions marketing the dream of electric living and succeeded so completely that an act as old as civilization itself, letting the sun dry your clothes, became a symbol of failure. Corporate America sold the world an electric dream. And for 85% of American households, that dream hums along in the laundry room every single week, costing $9 billion a year, contributing millions of tons of carbon to the atmosphere, and occasionally catching fire, all to avoid a piece of rope in the backyard.